Time for another episode of Local Roots. Hi, I'm Todd Studer. Welcome to Christmas Eve. And a programming note, we will not have a show tomorrow on Christmas Day, but we will be back with a brand new episode on December 26th, this Friday. Coming up today, a little bit of a different kind of show, as we're going to be talking about grief. And on Christmas Eve, because there are families going through grief right now, and the holidays can be very, very hard. So in order to explore this a little bit more, I was able to reach out to a friend of mine, Chad Richter. He is a counselor and therapist with the Center for Healing and Hope. And we're going to talk about that, about if you are going through grief, some of the different things that you can do to make the holidays a little bit easier. So that is going to be our guest today, Chad Richter from the Center for Healing and Hope on Local Roots. And here on Local Roots, we explore the places that make our region home and the people who keep them connected. That is why we are proud to feature Marnie Elkhorn Communications, your local communications provider, serving Marnie, Elkhorn, Walnut, Avoca, and other Southwest Iowa towns with high-speed fiber internet, reliable phone service, and TV options built for rural living. With real local support and unlimited data plans, you get speeds up to 1 gig to work, stream, and stay in touch with family and neighbors. Visit metc.net to learn more and get connected today. Are you in the market for stylish, locally curated fashion close to home? It's the Unique Boutique Iowa, and she is located at 101 4th Street in Neola, your destination for trending clothing, accessories, and distinctive gifts. Jamie Bush, owner, stylist, and a Neola mom and former educator. Unique Boutique Iowa brings a homegrown passion for quality and community to every piece. Open on the weekends, Saturdays 10 to 2, Sundays 11 to 3, always available online at shopubiowa.com. And Local Roots brought to you by Dave Lawrence, your Edward Jones financial advisor. Learn how he can help you reach your financial goals. Visit edwardjones.com for more. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Here at the studios on Willow, this is Chad Richter, and Chad is a therapist with a company called Center for Healing and Hope, located in Council Bluffs. And I was thrilled that when you agreed to come up and talk, because I know a lot of people that holidays can be hard. You know,
absolutely.
The Christmas season, Thanksgiving, and everything, and they're used to family getting together, and oftentimes it centers around a family member, or maybe more than one, that's not around anymore.
Yeah.
And it's tough. You know, I've heard from many that it's kind of a roller coaster. The highs seem higher and the lows seem lower. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get a professional perspective on that. And, you know, first off, does that something that sounds like, yeah, that should be happening?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, unfortunately, you know, the holidays are not always hallmark for everybody. You know, and it can take the form in many different ways, whether that is, you know, a direct loss around the holidays, that unfortunately the holidays become an anniversary period, or, you know, for many of us, and this one, you know, is more so common almost for everybody, is the holidays are intended, you know, to be a period of family. And so there's a period of, you know, potential remorse or change that come through the holidays because we had a significant loss through that previous year that now is coming full circle.
Right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, too, it's not just from a previous year. This could be going back several years. And, you know, especially when about the worst thing that can happen to somebody is they can lose a child.
Yeah.
And that in itself, it just seems that every year, that's hard.
Yeah, another reminder of it. And therapeutically, that is where, you know, anytime we have somebody in office that is, you know, struggling through the holidays, that are, you know, keenly aware of the loss or absence, you know, whether it be a recent, you know, or distant, you know, that aspect about, you know, not necessarily embracing, but recognizing, validating, you know, what it is that they are feeling, you know, allowing that to be there, but then also being able to say, how do I want to move forward with this, you know? And for many people, as they begin that process, it starts off very small. You know, it's something where it's like, okay, this is one thing I want to try and do different this year, either to remember the individual or to be able to say this is how I want to be able to move forward in my life. But yeah, it takes on many different forms for many people throughout the holidays.
That moving forward part, I think, is, lack of a better way of putting it, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because yes, you still want to be able to live your life, but I think, can't some feelings of guilt come along that when you start to do that?
Yeah.
That it kind of just holds you back from making any progress.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, it 100% can be a very conflicting thing, because some people will be in a space where, they don't feel right. They don't feel okay with being happy through the holidays, or, life in general, but especially through the Hallmark, aspect of, how many of us, and especially here in the Midwest, are raised, as far as, the holidays are defined by this certain picture, and that's been instilled in us. And so then when that picture has been disrupted or drastically altered, yeah, there can be a lot of guilt, that people have to wrestle through, saying, this is just the way I should feel. This is, what I should be doing, because I shouldn't be happy, for this. But at the same time, that's where the challenge comes in. It's not necessarily ever, being quote unquote happy, because yeah, the loss of a child, that aspect of grief will never be the same again. It's not this nice smooth transition that leaves you back in the same place on the other side. It is always going to be different. But at the same time, being able to say how or in what way, do I move forward with that? Some people, obviously, they're able to identify and navigate, what they can tolerate and what feels, acceptable to them. But then at the other, end, there are plenty of people out there that is just an ongoing battle every single year to say, okay, what are the holidays going to bring to me this year?
You mentioned a word there that I think can be very conflicting for a lot of people, and that word was should, because I know when people say someone says you should feel this way, you should think this way or that way, that person doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But yet we're pretty good at telling it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
We don't want to give ourselves the grace that we would give somebody else.
Yeah. And it's really hard in that aspect, and one of the things, we try and, encourage and promote, for anybody and everybody who's going through this process, again, whether that was more of a recent experience or whether that's something, they've been battling for years, is trying to identify somebody within your natural support system, whether that's a family, whether that's a friend, whether that's, through an organization, church, whatever it might be. So it is something that, can be understood, because oftentimes that'll be a piece that, you will commonly see, is that people, as they are wrestling through it themselves, will identify, oh, you just don't understand. You haven't experienced this, which is 100% accurate, but that's just the case, that this concept, I often use the terminology of like a blue Christmas, and luckily there has become more and more accepting. There are different areas that, even, in religious sense, they'll have blue services, where people can go and take a different approach to the holidays. But the underlying piece of it is trying to identify somebody that you can kind of share some of this with, and just be real and be like, yeah, this is horrible, this is awful, and have them be in a place where they can not only validate that, but being able to, just say, I understand, is something that can help people move forward. But if it is something through the holidays that anybody or everybody is isolated, which is very common, when you've had a loss, because you don't feel as open to go to things, you don't feel as, comfortable going and answering questions or dealing with the smiles if you yourself are not there, that people isolate through the holidays. And once you're sitting there in your own space, that obviously is where things usually don't go well.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult, though, to identify that person you're talking about. How do I find someone that I can talk to about this that isn't going to give me that should word? Because that's those people aren't all that common as I would hope they would be.
Yeah, and unfortunately, now, yeah, obviously in the mental health realm, what we would, be encouraging of anybody or everybody is, whether or not that takes on the capacity of reaching out and seeking out a therapist to begin the process, because it's a long process to begin identifying, okay, what's going to be my next step. Whenever I'm working with anybody dealing with grief, I tell people it is a full year process, because you have to go through and experience those different moments to say, okay, what do I want this to be next year? So yes, through the holidays, whether that is reaching out in a professional sense, or even if it is, identifying, different organization groups out there that, if you go looking for it, you will find it. Not always what I promote, because I'm old school, I like in person, but there are plenty of online aspects as well where people can seek out support groups and things like that for going through grief and loss through the holiday seasons. But it's all about starting and then trying to say, okay, how did that go? How did that feel? Often with a lot of my patients, I'll ask them after we've gone through stuff like this and say, how did that feel this year? Did that feel okay with you about dad? Or did that feel okay, with not having your brother there this year? And being able to ask them and explore and say, okay, well, what would you like to do next year? Like, this is a ongoing process to identify what feels right, what is going to be respectful, what is going to honor their memories. Oftentimes I joke with a lot of my clients and patients that, even it's as simple as making, Jell-O salad with fruit in it to remember grandma or whatever it is, it's this concept of saying it doesn't necessarily have to make sense to anybody else but you. And if you can go through and identify those things to say, okay, like, nothing will ever be right about this, but this feels okay. And that's where we start with it.
How about flipping the coin to the other side? And how does one be that friend for someone else? Because that's a difficult thing to do as well, because we all have our own images in our mind of what we think we might do. And wanting to share that isn't often what that person needs to hear.
Yeah. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I would really more approach that, or if I was working with somebody to encourage them on that, is making themselves available, but not in the sense of pressure, forced type situation, but making themselves available can be an easy way to open that door. It also depends on, where your relationship, friendship would be with said person. If it's something where it's just like, hey, we're going to go out and have dinner, or, we're going to go do this, not even making it about the loss. It's a type of thing where if they want to venture into that realm, they will. But if not, they more than likely just want it to be normal. And so just making yourself available and being present. And that's where, if you know anybody that is in that realm, that's where working on relationships, that's where in the therapeutic realm, natural support systems do come into play, to be able to say, like, how can this be a, 365 days a year type process? It's not just the holidays, and so it's kind of a tricky blend. Everybody obviously is unique for, what will work for them and what would be comfortable. But recognizing, being able to point things out, being able to just, wish them, a happy holidays or whatever it might be, is a starting point. And then, from there, just see what they offer you as far as whether or not they want to move forward with more.
It sounds like what you're saying is just give them the space to be the whatever is kind of friend that they happen to need right then. And hopefully, if you're open enough to it, then just sit with them. Sometimes it's just sitting and, maybe you can just sit and watch a television show and not say anything.
Yep.
But having that connection with somebody that's close to you, because, something else that you mentioned too about the isolating part.
Yeah.
It feels like we're doing something correct because we don't want to bring other people down.
Yeah.
But that's
Not the case.
That's
Not the case. No. And I'm sure a lot of my clients get tired of hearing it, but, I heavily, heavily promote that, we are designed to be social creatures. And yes, there are many individuals out there that are very comfortable with, being in their own space. There's nothing wrong with that. But being social doesn't necessarily mean interactive. Simply if you're not in a place where you can go and, be the life of the party or go and put yourself in a busy environment, simply going to, be at a restaurant, and have a meal, or go sit at a coffee shop, and, have a cup of coffee or hot chocolate, just so that you are not alone. Midwest, obviously, you never know what you're going to get. There's plenty of opportunity to not be alone, going and looking at holiday lights in either downtown Council Bluffs or downtown Omaha, where you don't have to interact with anybody if you don't want to. But just not being alone in your own space is going to be a really important piece.
Yeah, I know. For me personally, if I really start to feel like I'm getting in too big of a funk, just making a change, make some kind of change in the environment that I'm in the room that I'm in.
Yeah.
Move a piece of furniture from one side of the room to
Yeah.
the other. Just something simple
Yeah.
that makes me think a little bit differently. There's an old thing that they talk about, keeping your brain active, that whatever hand you are, brush your teeth with the opposite hand.
Yep.
Because that'll get your mind thinking about something else.
Oh, yeah. Well, and unfortunately, just the way the human brain is organized, if we are allowed to just allow things to roll and ruminate in our minds, many of us, most of us, we don't progress in an upward fashion. As that starts to scroll and roll in our mind, it is a downhill spiral, And so that aspect of, you don't have to plan, a detailed itinerary, on Christmas or New Year's or, whatever holiday it might be. If you can identify just even a brief period where you can change something, again, talking to my patients, how did that go this year? What do you want to do next year? Being able to make sure, and if it is specific about the individual that you've lost, wonderful. But if it's just being able to say, how do I want to move forward? Oftentimes also we will encourage people, if they've had a major change, to be able to say, well, what do you want your new tradition to be? If this used to be the case that we always used to go here or we always used to do this, but now that is no longer possible, so be it. But what do you want it to be now? And how do you even go about beginning to identify, what do I want to be my new tradition? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? Whether that is family or friend base, or if that is just individually to say, this is what the holidays are going to mean for me moving forward, and this is how I want to move in this direction, so that at least I'm not in this space, because I've realized in this space is not comfortable. It's not fun. It's not what I want.
For my own personality, I know I like to fix things. I'm a guy. That's what I do. But giving somebody that kind of space that you're talking about and letting them control the situation, I think is the important part there. Let them know that you're there, but without pestering.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
It's got to be the hard part there.
Absolutely. Oh, it is. And I mean, for many people, what can and does break the ice on, some of those pieces is them just realizing that they're thought of, they're included, and the opportunities there. And so that way, when you're talking about friends or family that have gone through something, just letting them know, hey, we're going to be here, we're going to be doing this, zero pressure, but you're invited. Love to have you. Whether that be for, 5 minutes at the end to come by and, have a piece of pie, or if that's something where you feel comfortable in joining us for a meal, but either way, you're invited. Ball's in your court if you want to attend.
Let's put a little bit of an urgency on that, because as this is released, it's Christmas Eve.
Oh, wonderful.
And, so if someone knows, okay, we're coming up on Christmas Eve tonight, and I'm here, and I know that I'm going to be struggling. What is just something that they could do that might be able to keep them from diving into that rumination you're talking about, in that spiral. Just something that, something small that maybe they can do to try to pull themselves.
Try to work.
Or even not even pull themselves out of it, do something before they get to that point.
Right. Well, that could, obviously be different for everybody, and depending on the severity of what they're going through. Some individuals avoiding falling into that mental space is going to be more substantial. And so them trying to say and be just within, their own private home or apartment or whatever, that more than likely isn't going to happen. They need to actually physically remove themselves and say, okay, like I need to get out of the house, and like I said, fortunately this year it's going to be a very mild day on Christmas Eve and Christmas, get the Hawaiian shirts out. But it will be a thing where if they want to get out of the house, that weather restriction won't be there. But there's going to be just as many people that a level of distraction would be very appropriate. That can take on the form of, watching, a specific holiday movie if they want to do so. But also, many of my clients, what I'll encourage them to do, humor, laughter, comedy, even though that is the farthest thing from your mind, typically when you're going through grief, it changes the brain. And so if you can identify something that, might even be an older movie that you've seen many a times, like you could recite it word for word, but that'll allow you to be in a different place and possibly have a slight shift from the intensity of what you're feeling. And underlying, the goal, I should say, of this is not to, again, make it better or have it be a merry or a happy Christmas. It's just beginning to identify, okay, how do I make this okay? How do I get through the day and at least not be in that space? And so, being able to do something like watching a movie, for some people, if it's preparing a specific meal, because they can have that level of distraction. But like I said, some individuals, what's probably going to be best is they actually need to get out of the house. Whether that is, going for a drive and looking at the lights, or if it's a type thing where you just get out of the house and go for a walk, or, go spend some time out in nature. That's the thing I usually encourage for a lot of people to understand. Sky's the limit. If you are setting, a new holiday tradition, as long as you're, not doing anything inappropriate or wrong, or you're not going to get yourself in trouble, then, hey, identify what feels right, branch out from there. But it's just starting is always the hardest piece.
And the ones that I would go back and watch are the sports movies
Mm-hmm.
that have the really inspiring ending.
Yep, make you feel good.
Could be Rudy, could be Cinderella Man.
Yep.
Could be Bad News Bears.
Right?
Go down that road.
Absolutely.
But I think the most important part of all of this is for anyone who may be seeing this that is going through anything, that it feels like you're alone, but you're not.
Yes.
There are a lot of folks that are going through very similar things.
Yeah.
And it's it feels opposite of what what you might be going through, because it does feel very like a lot of solitude.
Yeah.
But it's really not.
Yeah. And obviously never ever minimizing the grief anybody's going through, but it is I guess commonality, that everybody's story is unique, what led them to that place, or what the circumstances were within that. However, when you boil it down to core factors, core pieces, that aspect of grief and loss, that is a common thread that, if you were to go out and, ask family or friends, everybody is going to understand it. Everybody has had an aspect of change through the holidays. And again, that can be as simple as, this is where we used to do, Christmas at Grandma's house. But, Grandma's been gone for a while now. Or obviously to the more substantial, like you mentioned, the loss of a child. Hands down, that's going to be more substantial. But that piece of commonality with people understanding, that change and how that feels is something that, everybody has experienced, just at different times.
Well, I'm very grateful that you agreed to come in and talk about this. And the main reason for it is because we are all in different places in life. And some of us you can put fairly close to each other. But as you may know, or anybody that has watched the show, until I moved sets, and I haven't had it again, but there was a word hanging on the back wall behind me, and I will get it back up again. But it's a wire word, 3 letters, and it's the word and. The thing is that we are all here. This is true, and this is true, and this is true. And I want to make sure that we are incorporating everyone. Yeah. And especially this time of year. Yeah. Because we don't want anyone to feel completely alone with that. Because it is just a half step shy from despair. And that's not the place that I want anybody to be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, one of the things I would encourage, anybody, that's watching this, and, if they themselves aren't in that place of grief, it's programmed into many of us. We'll have thoughts about, I should call so-and-so, or, maybe I should make up a plate, or whatever it is. And so, I would encourage people to just honor and recognize when they have those thoughts and not second guess them. To be able to try and follow through if it's just like, I should really reach out to this person. I haven't talked to them in a while, or whatever it might be, because many of us, we do notice those subtle changes. And so, to be able to make sure that we're taking care of each other as a community, as family, even though, yes, the hustle and bustle of the holiday season, all of us know, just the running around and the busyness. But if we can create that space where we can really just kind of, count our blessings, but yet at the same time realize, those around us that may not be in that same space, that, like I mentioned, just reaching out, letting them know you're thinking about them, that, can sometimes change a person's whole entire holiday season.
Yeah, it certainly can. And you filled my cup coming in here today. Very grateful that
Absolutely.
you took some time to do this. And Center for Healing and Hope, right in Council Bluffs. And this is Chad Richter. And I'm grateful of a willingness to do this. And I think you should have your own podcast. This would be really good.
Maybe someday. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Frank, for coming in.
You bet, man. Take care.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home around Southwest Iowa, turn to Blake Hunter, your trusted realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Blake knows the local market and is dedicated to helping you find the perfect place to call home. And he is here to help you with the latest insights, tips, and all the trends in real estate. So whether you're a first-time buyer, upgrading, or ready to sell, Blake Hunter is here to guide you every step of the way. Visit his website, blakehunter.homes. And Castle & Associates of American Family Insurance, your local insurance provider for all of your home, auto, life, business, and farm insurance needs, with 4 convenient locations in Trainer, Council Bluffs, and in Nebraska in Bellevue and Elkhorn, which means they're local and in your neighborhood, ready to help you navigate the complexities of insurance today. Travis and his team will educate, advise, and simplify insurance, all to protect those things you cherish most. Give them a call for your free quote. That wraps up today's show. Again, thank you to Chad Richter for being a guest today. Tough conversations, but also, I think, important conversations to have this Christmas season. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we will not have a show Christmas Day, but we'll be back on December 26th with another episode of Local Roots. My name's Todd Studer. Merry Christmas.